including professional development opportunities. And I'll talk about this in a minute. So to give you an idea about Miami, if you don't already know, we market ourselves as the best undergraduate experience in the nation. And then there's a comma, and then it says we also have select excellent graduate programs. But most people forget to read all after that. Graduate education is very important in Miami. We have around 2,200 graduate students and 11 doctoral programs and 65 master's programs. That number is changing. We're adding master's programs, and then some of them have sunsetted just in the last year.
But it's good now.
So we have, I said, about 2,200 graduate students. About 800 of those students are on an online program called Project Dragon. And so most of the Project Dragonfly students never come to us, maybe on vacation, but they can complete their degrees completely online. Of the remaining students, around 500 to 600 students are graduate assistants, have some form of graduate assistantship when they're doing their studies. We also have other students, many of them are in what's called market-driven programs, or several of our business programs where there's a set tuition rate on students pay. And again, those are usually what we call professional graduate programs where we have good grades. I'm only going to have just a little bit more. I'm actually open for Allen University. We're going to do a lot. But I have 3 requests of all of you as you start your graduate programs at Miami. The first one is obvious. Work really hard and learn as much as you can, because you guys are investing in yourselves right now going to graduate school. You're positioning yourself for either a new career or maybe an advanced career once you're done here. But don't stay just in your program. We do a lot of work to try to offer professional development opportunities for you. And so just about every Friday during the semester, there'll be a professional development opportunity for you. And there's a number of graduate certificates that maybe you have time to look into them. One of which I think Ellen may tell you about is certificate in college teaching. If you are thinking about teaching after you finish your degree work here. And there's many other ones that you can look at, and they are listed on our website. The second thing that I encourage you to do is to network. It's very easy just to have friends in your own grad program, but please reach out. We have 4 different graduate student associations. Find grad students or even undergrads in other programs and get to be friends with them. When you had a bad day in your grad program, sometimes it's good to relax with someone that's not in your grad program. And so try to network with different grad students or undergrads, even faculty in different positions, in different programs. And it'll give you a nice base here at Miami as you become part of the Miami community. The last thing that I'd like to ask you guys to do, and this one is probably the most important of the 3, is please take time to take care of yourselves while you're going through this. Grad school can be a very lonely time compared to undergrad. Please take time to look after your own mental and physical health. We have great exercise facilities, and we will be off this mask mandate at some point, and you can go back in and actually breathe. We have a beautiful campus to walk around on. We're going to try to find some things for you guys to do, and we're working on that right now, some physical things that maybe we could do, like yoga or something. If you do not want to see the grad, but just do take time for yourselves too, because we want you guys to be healthy and happy here. We do have a requirement right now, anytime you're inside of a Miami building, you have to wear a mask. There are no specific guidelines about social distancing, but you guys just try not to be too close in a huge packed area like we are right now. And so, but just be smart in these type of things. We're going to get past this. We're in much better shape than we were last year this time. There's a lot of hope that we're going to be with this return to a normal state here at Miami. So again, thank you guys. Welcome to Miami and welcome to the Miami family. It's something that we always say. Welcome. It's my privilege to introduce the next speaker, Dr. Ellen Mazursky. She is the director of CTE. She'll tell you what that is. But she's also a longtime colleague of mine. We're both Emerson.
Thank you, Dr. Crowder. So, hi, everyone. Raise your hand if you received swag from the Center for Teaching Excellence. Please raise your hand if you received. Okay, swag refers to items like pens, magnets. Let's try that again. Can you raise your hand if you received swag from the Center for Teaching Excellence? Okay, this is not for graduate students, or hand. Okay. You are interested in your program and your discipline. Let's see it.
Oh, there's not. Okay, they can't hear remote.
Are you not hearing? Oh, no. They are, they raised their hand. And then they got a little scared too.
Okay.
How are you doing? Are you better?
Yeah. Okay. Keep going.
All right.
We're
So
recording.
what I want to let you know about is the Center for Teaching Excellence is here specifically to support you in your role as a teacher while you're on campus, your development as a teacher if you're going to be teaching in higher education or otherwise when you leave. But something that many of you probably haven't thought about is that you're earning an advanced degree. No matter what field you go into, you're going to be a leader. You're going to be managing people. You're going to be training people. And knowing something about learning makes you better individuals. So just a quick survey. How many of you will have teaching responsibilities at some point during your time in graduate school here at Miami? Great. We have a program called the Graduate Student Teaching Enhancement Program. Participation has a few goodies. Learning. Like it? Like it? That's good. I'm trying really hard not to be myself. Okay, so I can do this. The features of the program are learning, food, and professional development planning. Now, knowing who you are, what you're about, sounds wonderful. So if you didn't do me a favor, take out your cell phone, please, take out your smartphone, and type into your browser miamioh.edu /CTE. If you're having trouble with that, just type in Miami University CTE. When you come to our website, you'll find a portal just for you. You click on graduate student, you can look at all the things that we offer you. So I'm not going to spend time going into it, but I want to encourage you to spend a bit of time browsing and a bit of time learning about these opportunities. We are here to support you in your development as well as helping you be a part of the community while you're here. So I'm very excited to hear welcome to Miami University from the center. And I think I'm supposed to introduce the next speaker who I don't know who that is, but let's see. Maybe it's Dr. Rosemary Ford. Right. Thank you. And this is where you applaud.
Librarian, but before we do, I know those of you who are not in the room are having difficulty hearing. We're going to continue to work on that. Just know I know there's been some questions. There is nothing on the screen right now. It's just the audio. So hopefully the captioning is working decently. We are recording. and we'll try to figure out a better solution. But when we get to a presentation where there are presentation materials, then we will share the screen of the presentation. So sorry about the inconvenience. Okay, well, we would like to welcome Annabelle Morgan, who is a social science librarian, for a presentation from the library.
Hey everyone, my name is Abby Morgan, I'm a social science librarian, and I really just have three things that I want you guys to be aware of. So one, the library website is lib.miamioh.edu. It has all the information that I could stand up here and deliver to you about the library. So I won't do that. Instead, I really request things. Go to our website. Again, the URL is lib.miamioh.edu. The second thing is that the librarians are all very ready. It's not just me, there's about a staff of 16 of us, and we specialize in different subject areas. So anytime that you're struggling with research or need a little bit of help with citations or reading or dissertation without into the comments, we are here for you. We have a lot of services, so we're super friendly and happy to help you working practice. So please reach out to us. And then the third thing is that immediately after this session, there is a longer library orientation. So if you know about it, we'll be serving you to go there. You can learn a little bit more about library services and you can get a chance to meet with your actual library services. So I hope to see you there. Thank you.
All right, we're going to take 2 seconds, get our panelists down here, and we're also going to reorient the computer because we do have 150 people online. Impressive mode. Graduate students. So graduate students online, we're going to give us 2 minutes. You have 2 minutes to meet the person next to you, socially distant. Of course, introduce yourself, find out what program they're in. We expect a lot of noise right
That's like a work. I'm using the HDMI. Then you put the audio input from that directly. And we don't have them on video. But that's okay. We can figure that out. I can send it to you. Or so you did.
You also notice that between Amity and myself will be your hosts for your graduate education. So Dr. Crowder comes in, Dean Crowder, you know, he confers your degree, all that special stuff, but we're here to help you build community. And these 4 people are some brilliant leaders on campus who are going to tell you a little bit more about graduate education. We have some pre-programmed questions, but hopefully if we have enough time, I want you to feel those of you online, we're really excited you're here, but they're going to post questions. You guys can raise your hand to ask questions, but we have some to start because we wanted to make them feel comfortable as well. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to have them introduce themselves. So again, I'm Rosemary Ward. I'm the Associate Dean in the Graduate School. I'm also a faculty member in Public Health, which is really a misnomer. If you looked at my transcript, you'd think I was in statistics. If you look at my degree, it says psychology. What the heck is that? But that's what Miami is great about. If you want an experience in which you get to experience a lot of different fields, we want to connect you. We are here in the graduate school to help you build community. But I will come back after the panel and tell you a little bit about that. The first thing I'm going to do is ask our panelists to introduce themselves. So I'm going to give it to Sean first.
That is. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Sean. I'm the president of the Graduate Student Pride Association, and I am a 4th-year psychology PhD student.
Hello. My name is Yuzhong. I am a PhD student in the Education Leadership Department. Is it better now? Okay. And I'm also working towards my psychologist licensure.
Hi, everyone. My name is Aja Johnson. I'm a 3rd-year PhD student in Student Affairs and Higher Education, which is also the Educational Leadership Department at Miami. I also am a writing consultant, so if you're going to the Writing Center, I hope to see you there. And I'm the president of the Graduate Students of Council Association, which is why I'm here today.
Hi, I'm Carrie Ann. I'm a 4th-year PhD student in the biology department, and I'm president of the Grad Student Association.
All right, excellent. So we do want to get you connected, and you should be getting emails via the Graduate Student Resource, campus site, and GSA, so they can learn about some of the events to get to know all your peers and all of our wonderful peers online. But I'm going to start with a question. Anyone can go first. What is one thing you wish you knew as an incoming student? So what is one thing that you wish you knew as an incoming student? Who wants to go first? All right, thanks.
So I thought about this really hard, but the one thing that you probably should know is to take care of yourself. Taking care of yourself is just as important, if not more important, than doing the work. I would stay on campus until like 11 o'clock at night trying to read. But at the end of the day, that's nowhere near helpful if you're not getting the sleep that you need. So take care of yourselves. I know you've probably been doing it during lockdown because of COVID, but with the hustle and bustle of us coming back to campus, it's going to be even more important. So put that as a priority. Eat, sleep, work out, whatever. Talk to your mama. Just live your best life.
I can go next. Kind of go on to that. I think time management is really important. Grad school can be overwhelming if you do not plan yourself ahead. You would get easily overwhelmed with all the homeworks, readings, and there's tons of them, exams, GA duties, and things like that. And you can easily end up with 3 projects due tomorrow, and you have basically nothing.
You're not supposed to stress them out.
I'm sorry. So my point is, plan yourself ahead. Find a good technique to manage your time, to put everything in schedule and keep on track. That's the key help.
Something that I wish I would have known is that, you know, it's okay not to know everything. When I was at research meetings in my first year, I used to get sort of embarrassed if someone asked me a question and I didn't know how to answer it. But that's sort of the point of grad school, right? You're being trained as an expert in your field. And even your mentors are not going to know everything either about their field. So don't be afraid to ask questions and don't feel embarrassed if you don't know the answer to the question.
All right, we're going to go to the next one. And this is why we have this panel. How do you get involved in student organizations?
Sure. So I I would tell you to look at the Canvas pages, especially for like the Grad Student Association. It tells you when the meetings are. Each department has representatives that come, but they're open for anybody. So anybody can show up to them, hear about what's happening. You don't have to rely on your department representatives. Some of y'all have excellent department representatives who will sit in the GSA meeting and immediately email you everything that's happening. Some of your representatives might wait a week, but you can come yourself and plug in.
And get free food.
And get free food.
I can add something. I'm currently involved in 2 student organizations, and both of them are academic related. So if you are looking for something like that in your program and related to what you're studying, you can just ask your faculty members if they knew any of them exist. Because I know some of the faculty members are also serving as an advisor of student organizations.
I think when I was in my first year, and just talking with like other people in my program, we sort of had a similar experience where we didn't really like go out and try to get involved in student organizations in our first year, because your first year can feel very overwhelming and you might feel like you don't have time to do it. But honestly, most of the student organizations, will have like a bi-weekly or monthly meeting that lasts like an hour. It's not a huge time commitment. And I think, especially in your first year, it's important to get out of your comfort zone and meet people, because otherwise it can be a very isolating experience.
I'll just add that if you feel like you can't make something on time, it's okay. If you can't come to that one event, but you want to go to something else, it's also okay. Like, just show up. If you can only do 30 minutes, 30 minutes is better than nothing. It's hard to maintain I would say a sound social life as a graduate student without feeling the pressures to be writing or doing research. So just giving that 30 minutes of your time to be social is enough. And we'll be happy to welcome you and introduce you to people so that you can expand your network.
All right. Some sage advice there. Just to give you guys an idea, we have 4 organizations. You're going to hear a little bit about this in a little while though. You're the Graduate Student Association. This one is your general one. You plan to go to a conference, or if you plan so you can request funding. If you want to know how policies work, or you want to get into university policies, Graduate Student Association is your primary hub for that. Then we have the Graduate Student Color Association. Here you get to meet a whole bunch of diverse students all over campus, again, to network. And they have an opening meet and greet coming up on Saturday.
Yes.
At 10 a.m. in 167 Upham Hall. Another organization that we're going to start this year. So if you're looking for a leadership position, or you just want to be involved, if you didn't fill out the student survey, that's fine. But we're going to have the International Graduate Student Association. So if you'd like to be involved and you haven't reached out yet, feel free to send me an email. I love email. A lot of rich sarcasm there. But send me an email. It's the easiest way for me to get you on my list, because we're going to have our first meeting pretty soon. And then we have the Graduate Student Pride Association, again, for our LGBTQIA+ environment. Everybody who, if you're an ally or you want to be involved, I'm telling you, here are 4 people that can tell you a lot about these organizations and tell you an opportunity to connect with like-minded peers. If you're interested in building other forums and other communities, again, don't hesitate to reach out. Here's a good one. We are still in a pandemic. As Dean Crowder said, we are masking right now. From the graduate students, what are some tips for navigating graduate school during the COVID-19 pandemic? And it's okay, just like Sean said, they don't have to know all the right answers. What's one tip that's worked for you? You got this one in advance, guys.
So last year, I did not have any classes that met in person. Everything was virtual. And all semester, I did not take any classes at all. That's where I was in my program. But I would come to campus probably 3 days a week and walk with friends, usually at lunchtime if the weather wasn't like 100 degrees outside. But coming to campus, there was something about physically being here that made me feel and kind of reminded me that yes, I was still in school, even if 90% of my time was spent at home. And being with those peers kept me from being super isolated. When you're isolated, it's not as fun or enjoyable.
I would say two things. The first is to join any virtual writing community that you can. You may not necessarily be writing something in terms of like an essay or a research paper. You may just be getting organized, and that's okay. Something about doing that group work allows to hold you accountable while being in community. And so you're getting two things done at once. And then the other thing is take all the time you need to get organized. If something doesn't work, if a system, you probably can't see it from where you are, but I have a giant planner in front of me. When it doesn't work, I just reorganize it because that's what you have to do. You pivot a lot and you see what works. And if it doesn't work, you change it, and that's okay. You all are here because you're probably perfectionists to some degree. And so don't let that hold you to the point where you don't do different things to help you succeed during this pandemic.
All right, let me underscore two things for you from that. As Audra said, she's involved with the Writing Center. Cal Center for Writing Excellence is also for you as graduate students. They have a lot of writing groups you can join. They call them retreats now. I still call them boot camps. But so they give you these opportunities to get together and to write. In addition to that, again, for our online learners and our face-to-face learners, if you look in the back announcements on the GSA campus site, I posted recently about the Natural Center for Faculty Development and Diversity. That is a free thing for you. You can sign up for writing groups. There's webinars about how to do time management. There are lots of opportunities for you again. So don't unplug, plug in. I'm going to pass this on.
I want to pick up back what Audra just said. Be flexible. Flexibility is something that can help you avoid overwhelming and avoid frustration. I once had I was going to do a presentation and I had a group activity plan with two people in a group. And then at that moment, I found out like this one person went online. All my plans fall off, and it got me frustrated for a bit. So I would say plan ahead and be flexible with the changes.
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest thing was sort of kind of like Audra was saying, just holding yourself accountable. I think when we made the transition to virtual class, it's something I've never enjoyed doing. And I think when you're in your classes online, it's a lot easier to just kind of, you don't feel the in-person peer pressure to, keep on task. So I think it's much more important in the age of COVID to manage your time efficiently and make sure that you are, scheduling things out in advance, because just kind of what we're living in right now.
So the pandemic changed a lot of things how you learn, and all of this is good advice, but I want to underscore the theme from all of this. Stay connected. Stay connected to other people. If we jump online, whatever a future may bring, we don't know. I mean, quite honestly, a lot of moving in for the undergrads is happening now and will be happening all this week. But try to find ways to get connected within your program. It's not only going to help you navigate the pandemic, but it's also going to help you later on in your program, in your future, in your career. A lot of networking, just like Dean Crowder said, is good for you to open other doors. All right, panelists, here's your next question. And realize some of the students here online and face-to-face are undergrads right now. There are combined students, but how is grad student life different than being an undergrad? They all deep sigh. I know you could not hear that. There was a deep sigh. We want to take this first. Thank you.
I think the biggest difference I noticed transitioning to grad school is that it's much more self-motivated than undergrad. So no one's going to remind you when things are due. You have to make sure that you are planning things out. You know what's going on, because at the end of the day, you're in this program because you're wanting to become an expert in your field, and no one's going to really hold your hand through it. It's something that you need to learn how to do yourself, with the support of others. But just making sure that you're managing your time appropriately.
I completely agree with what Sean just said. I feel like in grad school, you are your own boss. You plan your own schedule, and there's no professor hunting you for assignments anymore. So plan ahead and and also grades are important, but not that important in grad school compared to undergrad. It's your experiences and what you learn, actually that matters.
That, and you need a 3.0 to graduate, just so everybody's clear on that one. Grades matter on a certain level. Yes.
Yeah, I don't have anything I can speak.
All right, let me add just a little bit more too.
Okay.
So a difference between grad school and undergrad, just like Sean said, you have a lot more unstructured time. It's more on you. When you are full-time as an undergrad here at Miami, you have 12 credits. Your graduate student is 9 credits. When Carrie Ann said she had no classes, if you're in doctoral program right now, you have multiple semesters where you have all this unstructured time when they're like, go find a research question, as if it's like on some street corner somewhere. Like, there is a lot of graduate school that you kind of have to embrace that inner nerd. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, you've just elected for more schooling after the bachelor's. Like, you can't get more nerdy than that. So embrace that nerd and realize you are gonna be choosing your own path. You are gonna have an advisor, and that's gonna be your primary person to talk to. But then you're gonna be, whether you're a combined student, a master's student that's online, we have programs that are 10 months here. So I don't know if my 10-monthers are here, but guess what? That's wicked quick. Like, so you are here and you are doing a very intense experience. That goes back to the self-care, make sure it's happening. And if you don't know what that means, don't hesitate to reach out again. We have lovely student counseling service that is also here for graduate students. All right, next one. If you guys think about your time here in Miami, what are some professional development opportunities that you've participated in? All right, next.
Okay, so Miami has so many things to offer. Y'all heard from Ellen earlier over at CTE. I've done the Graduate Student Teaching Enhancement Program with CTE. It was wonderful. They do book studies, and I've done book studies with them.
You get a free book
and free food.
Free food? I mean, come on.
Everything I've done with CTE has been phenomenal. I've also done stuff with the House Center. So I did the Graduate Writing Fellows Program. And so that's a program, I think they do it every other year, where graduate students are taught how to teach writing in their discipline. And so like I was taught how to teach undergrad biology students how to write. I've done all sorts of HOW events. They've also all been phenomenal. Like, I don't have anything bad to say about either one of those organizations on campus and the opportunities they have. You might be able to speak to this better, but I think HOW's doing like a thing, like a series this fall on like writing and equity. Mm-hmm. Is that right? Mm-hmm. There's faculty learning communities, and I'm in a faculty learning community for this fall on singing the story, weaving the story, Miami's history. Like, there's so much here. So excited. Yeah, I am so excited.
With that, I'd like to attend the events on Friday. I know my first year I took advantage of those because they were at a consistent time and I could just block off for that hour. One of the events that I went to that has been still helpful, and I still review my notes, is how to write a lit review. So I don't think I've shared this yet, but I came from working full time. So it had been a minute since I've written a paper, and lit reviews are scary sometimes. So when you're thinking about professional development, sometimes it's not just for your career, but also just for where you are right now in your doctoral career.
All right, I'm going to talk about this a little bit after our panelists, but we do have the Graduate Research Forum. So I'll tell you about that later. Pocket that in your mind for later. We also have the Red Hawk Talks. If you ever wanted to do a TED Talk, watch for that announcement. We also have a 3-minute thesis. If you ever wanted to win cash, there's the 3-minute thesis. No, all of a sudden, people got up from their phones. Look at that. I said money. Yes. First prize, $1,000, 3-minute thesis. Pay attention at 5 o'clock. We're switching when I talk about that. The stuff that Aja talked about is on Fridays. We have regular events. Again, you'll see some of the topics coming up, but this is again a way for you to connect with community and get some professional development and bring people from all over campus to support you, and we do have them available online. I feel like I'm selling things when I point to the people in the camera, but I am. All right. What do you guys do for fun? No pressure there. This is an easy one. What do you do for fun? And you can't say nothing.
Wow.
No, guys, no.
Oh, well, I was thinking you on that. Like, I eat ice cream. Y'all are laughing, but Oxford's really small, so you can go on a walk and get there, and like, it's a decent walk. It's an exercise, so you can walk to graders, and then you can walk from graders, and you won't feel guilty. Yeah, or Spring Street treats. I do eat a lot of ice cream. I just discovered the Spring Street Social. They have board games and stuff, so I'm hoping to meet some other fellow graduate students there. And let's see, what else do I? Oh, I started making bracelets. Like, so it's really important to find a hobby. Do not let your soul die inside because you're a student. Great.
That doesn't happen in graduate school. You do not die inside. We're not vampires or zombies.
Of course we're not, because we're gonna have hobbies and meet people at Spring Street Social and have slushies and things. So yeah.
And birthday cake is a really good flavor. I like cooking, and other than that, I do whatever my cats want to do. And I'm a dog person.
So I actually live in Cincinnati, which, depending on where you're going, is 45 minutes to an hour from here. Tons of stuff to do there. So if you want a fun weekend day, there's plenty of stuff to do there. In Oxford, if you are like an outdoorsy person, there's plenty of stuff to do here. There's tons of parks. There's what is the
Oxford Trail.
Oxford Trail, and then there's a place where you can go like kayaking, Houston Woods.
Oh,
and also like over in Indiana, there's a ton of outdoor stuff as well.
Okay.
I'm gonna say something else. Oh, yeah. Well, he said something about the trails, but I also want to mention that there are things to do between here and Cincinnati. So if you're commuting, you're like, oh, I don't want to go all the way to Oxford, or I don't want to go all the way to Cincinnati. True West, a lot of grad students hang out there. There's also some other cool coffee shops, like right on the main street of Hamilton, Fairfield. Jungle Gyms, if you're new to Oxford or to the area, it is worth the trip, my friends. They have great food, great selections all around the world. So don't miss out on Jungle Gyms. It took me too long to discover
We
it.
might need to type that in the chat, Jungle Gyms. You guys want to tell them? I mean, if they're local, they should do Jungle Gyms. Cool. Sorry.
I live kind of between here and Hamilton. I live on a farm in the middle of nowhere, kind of. I love going to Cincinnati. I have season tickets at 2 of the theaters down there to see shows. A lot of the theaters will give you a discount on your season tickets if you opt for a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday night. They'll also often give you discounts, like, and when I say discounts, like $25 tickets, if you show your student ID. So if you're interested in live theater, I know you're not going to be rich as a grad student, but that doesn't mean it's like totally out of reach and unattainable.
Don't ever hesitate to ask for a student discount, honestly, like. Use it forever. Yes, use it forever. My husband looks like he's 17. He's been getting the student discount for 30 years. I wish I was joking. Okay. There are a lot of things. So they mentioned, let me tell you some things the undergrads don't really know about. Okay, so they think the only thing that happens is on High and Poplar, and that's where the bars are. There's more to Oxford than just the bars. If you do want the bar life, there's Oak Pub that caters to our graduate students. We do have a number of ethnic restaurants, a variety of different opportunities there. And they come in, like, every year it's something different. Somebody's opening yet another restaurant here. There are 70 miles of hiking trails that Sean mentioned. If you're a runner, I can tell you lots of places to run all over Oxford. It's a great place to run. On Thursday nights for a while, you'll see that there'll be music uptown in the park. For our online people, there are lots of ways to connect with us via our online website. We do have our Friday things so that you can connect online as well. So again, Oxford is a great town, but also the surrounding area as well. Let me go to our next question. All right, this one always gets some interesting responses, no pressure here.
Mhm.
Is buying textbooks the same as undergrad? How do you know which books or readings and when you should have them or when they're important to read? You read everything. That's not the answer. Don't feel.
I asked. So like I literally sent an email earlier last week. A professor had a book listed. It's the newest edition. It's like $175. I sent an email and I said, hey, I see we need this. I'm willing to get it if I absolutely have to get it. But like, are you going to be assigning readings and will the old edition work? To which I got, yes, I'm going to be assigning readings, but I don't think it's anything special in the new edition. So don't be afraid to ask. Most professors won't be upset with you asking. I don't think he was like trying to cause us financial pain by listing the newest one. I think it's what's probably most widely available at the bookstores.
The bookstore makes us do the new edition.
Yeah. But yeah, if you ask, your professors are generally going to be really nice and they will tell you what you absolutely need versus like, hey, I'm not going to use this except for one reading. And so like if they say something's not going to be used a whole lot and you're going to use like 1 or 2 chapters out of it, I would recommend that you go up to the King Library. The King Library has copies of most textbooks and they're not able to be checked out, so they will be there. And so you could sit in the library, read that chapter and not have to purchase it.
There's also Ohio Link where you can get books from all over the state, and they'll just mail it to you because you're here and they just want you to be able to read their books. It's free charge and all of that. They'll ship to your house or it'll come to campus. If buying textbooks are like in undergrad, no. I think no. I'm just gonna say no. It's not. But it can be like that if you choose to buy the new editions of everything, or if you choose to wait to the last minute to buy your books. You can get stuff used, it just may take a long time to get to you. So I would just say be proactive and look at what your options are to get all of your textbooks. I'm a huge fan of Amazon because we got a good relationship right now.
I would add about renting a book. I know in my undergrad, I took my undergrad in China, we all required to buy a book. But here you can also rent a book if you feel like you're gonna only use it for 1 semester or maybe 2 semesters. You can just rent a book for a much cheaper price. And also your professor doesn't, they won't expect you to have the book by the first week. You can also wait until the first class and ask questions about your textbooks, and then just make a decision whether buy or rent or otherwise.
So it's probably different with other departments, but in the psych department, I've actually never used a textbook. None of the classes that we take use textbooks. It's almost research papers. So if your class does require a textbook, it would be in the syllabus, and like others said, definitely read it. I also read all my textbooks if I do need them.
All right, so since you said they read articles, you have to read everything that's assigned.
Yeah, so you do have to read everything that's assigned. Typically, like what my classes are like is there will be a reading list in the syllabus. And every week there will be like maybe 2 or 3 papers that we're required to read. And then there are other non-required readings that are usually like big review articles. But I don't think anyone reads them.
So then the answer is you don't need to read everything.
You don't need to read everything unless it's required.
I said I wasn't gonna say this, but you do not need to read everything. I'm sorry, Sean. I'm sorry. Only because you have to ask yourself, what's the topic for this week's class? Okay, how does that relate to this reading? What's 1 or 2 quotes that I got out of this reading? What are the points I want to walk away with? sometimes you're not gonna retain everything. And we don't honestly, what I've been doing because of COVID, I've been setting a timer. I get 30 minutes per article or something, like, that's it. And usually an article is 35 to 40 pages. Because otherwise I'm just gonna forget. I also have dyslexia, so if any of my learning disability friends out there in the world, like, we can spend 2 years on one article if we wanted to. And we don't have 2 years to spend on one article.
I would say it also depends on what you're needing to read it for. So like if you're taking a seminar, especially like in the biology department, they usually have 12 students. You're assigned 2 articles each week. And all that you are going to do in class is discuss that article. And when I say you're going to discuss it, I mean the professor's not going to say a word, and it's going to be the 12 of you students discussing it. And so if nobody's read it, you're going to sit in silence and stare at each other. And that's more awkward.
I'm teaching the wrong classes. That's what I'm learning. I actually lectured.
Yeah, and so that's how our seminars work. And so when people don't read the article, it's really miserable. Because then you're sitting in this like awkward silence and the professor's like, so who actually read it? And then everybody's just like, oh crap. Also, if your professors have you choose an article to read as a class, choose something that you're actually interested in reading. I'm shocked by the number of my peers who like just go online, submit the first article and say like, oh, the week I'm leading seminar, this is what everybody's gonna read. And then we find out like they're not even interested in it. It's a lot more pleasant if you choose stuff that you are interested in reading.
All right, to circle back to something that Audra said, the Ranella Learning Center, if you need an accommodation, that service is for you as well. So if you are either our online learners or our students that are face-to-face, the Ranella Learning Center, you can get your accommodations, you can get testing there, you can learn time management, study skills. The Ranella Learning Center is also an opportunity for you. So we have roughly 10 minutes left. So anybody online who wants to post a question, or are there any questions that you guys want to ask? Of course, like, thank you, go ahead. Yeah. Okay, so let me repeat the question and let me know if I'm right. The student is a GA, so graduate assistant. So they're getting funding for going to graduate school, which means they have either a full or partial tuition waiver and plus a stipend. What are some tips or some things that she should know as a graduate GA?
Work the hours you're told to work. So if you're told they're paying you for 20 hours, then work your 20 hours. Like I said, I came from a full-time job and I found myself trying to do more and more work and find more and more things to do work on. It didn't make sense. But your job is to be a student and your GA is to assist the office you're in. So assist. I promise that the professional development skills you're going to get in the office are going to be worthwhile, even if you don't give it a full 40 to 60 hour work week.
I want to go back to the time management that I talked about before. So if you have to balance your study and work time, and it is okay to talk to your GA supervisor about if you have any difficulty completing the work, if you want to do an extension or something, it is okay to tell them. They're really helpful and understanding.
So communication is key. You want to ask a follow-up question? Go ahead. So a student asks a TA a question, say in class or in study group. If you don't know the answer, what do? I have an answer for that, but I'll let Carrie go.
Okay, so I actually taught 7th grade and 9th and 10th grade bio in Atlanta before coming here. And just like when I was a teacher, if I don't know, I tell them I don't know, and that I will find an answer for them. I tend to teach with a stack of Post-it notes and I'll put their name and a question on it because otherwise I won't remember. And then I try to follow up with them in an email. But telling them you don't know isn't bad. You're an expert on some things, but not all things.
That goes back to what Sean said, like it's important to know when you don't know. It's important to know the bounds of your knowledge. And it's completely okay to say, even if you're a research GA, I don't know, but let me look that up for you. And if you don't know, you can go to the professor. Like, it is more valuable for the students that you do not lie. Right? Go look it up. It's okay. Now, if you're feeling like your skill set isn't matching the course that you're instructing, that's something different. If you're getting a lot of questions that you feel like you can't answer, then you need to get some more help from the professor and find out ways to bolster your knowledge in the class you're TAing. All right, additional questions. Hopefully that was helpful. Yes.
Undergraduate, kind of what's it like being graduate?
All right, so the question for the people online is, what is it like to be a graduate student at a primarily undergrad institution? How does that impact your social life, and can you hang out with the undergrads? I'm gonna do the legal part of that and then I'll turn this over. If you have a dual role, in other words, you have grading responsibilities for a student or supervising responsibilities for them, you should not be socializing with that student. You do not want what you do to ever be questioned. If you are concerned or you have questions about that, you can either reach out to myself, to Dean Crowder, to General Counsel, but you should not be socializing with students that you have supervisory or grading responsibility for. So I'm going to turn that over to anybody who wants to feel, what's it like?
So I'm actually, I TA in my department, TA the master students. It's a little weird because they're also in my department and they're graduate students. I don't hang out with them because I may have to grade something. And I definitely don't hang out with undergraduate students, not because they're not great people, because they are. But if you find that an undergraduate student wants more of your time or wants to kind of hang out, what I found to be helpful is grabbing a coffee with them, like in King Library, sharing a cupcake or not a cupcake, what are those, muffins, give them a muffin. And then like walking them to their next class and asking them how their school experience is. Like I still find a need to build relationships with them and shed light on what it's like to be a graduate student or what it's like to be in your position, because you're probably one of the few people that they feel comfortable talking to, who they're getting taught or who are teachers to them. So don't be afraid to get to know them, but do not get to know them on Brick Street.
Brick Street's the bar.
Like
as if there's one bar.
So I work in a lab, and actually like that we have a lot of undergrads because it gives, if you are working in a lab or a setting where you're able to mentor students, you have hundreds of opportunities to mentor students throughout your time in grad school. I've trained a bunch of different students on research techniques, and then they've gone on to go to research conferences and publish their own papers. So it's a very rewarding experience in that way, but I definitely do not hang out with undergrads. I would encourage you, if you are trying to look to make friends, meet with the other graduate students in your department, join student organizations, and I would definitely encourage you to build connections that way.
And I was gonna say, if you are concerned about seeing an undergrad like while you're out, OPUB, which Rosemary mentioned, they do like a dual identification kind of thing, so that you have to bring like 2 forms of ID. So it is more grad student friendly. You often won't run into your students if you just need that space, but you don't want to travel outside of Oxford. I think that's the important part, right? Like you need to have a third place or somewhere else to go and have fun, while also not being concerned with running into your students. And if you do, just say, hey, enjoy yourself. Okay, bye-bye.
And you will see them. You will see them in the grocery store. I said the bar as if there's only one. There's more than one bar, but there's primarily one grocery store plus Walmart. All right, next question. Okay. So the question was, say you were an undergrad with somebody and now you're here and they're still an undergrad, but now you're a graduate student. How do you deal with that transition relationship? That's a tricky one because there's a high likelihood if you stayed in the same program that then you'd be their TA. You have, again, you don't want to do anything. This is our general counsel, Robin Parker, our lawyer, university lawyer, says this all the time. If you don't want it on the front page of a newspaper, like that's such an old person thing to say. If you don't want it on social media, don't do it. So when you think about it, it may be that semester when they're in your class or something like that, you don't hang out with them. But you do need to be very conscious of anybody that could question that type of relationship. So you are not to be dating your students. I'll say that again. You don't date your students, okay? Like you guys are like laughing. No, for real. Like don't look at the undergrad pool as like you're dating. Like Sean said, like check out the grad students. There's a lot of you too as well. But so navigating that situation, again, if you have specific questions or something like that, don't hesitate to ask. Always ask. If you're uncertain or you even have a little icky feeling in your stomach, ask. All right? It's better to ask than to get in trouble later because you're like, it's no big deal. Yes. All right. If you guys could please welcome or thank this great panel for me.
All right, we're going to transition real quick. Okay. All right, in the process of trying to get everybody online and welcome all of you, like we are in multiple things. Penny, can I ask a favor? Can you advance the slides on that computer? Because that's the slides they see. And unfortunately, I also changed this. This was not supposed to be winter. I know it's like 81 degrees outside. Are you able to show it to the people online? If not, I can. So we need that computer to show face to face and this computer. All right, I'll share. They're going to see different pictures. All right, hopefully my people online are still here. So again, I'm Rosemary Ward. I'm the Associate Dean of the Graduate School. Just to give you a little bit of an idea here, I've been at Miami University since 2002. And I know pretty soon I'll be saying that, and that'll be the year you were born. And that'll really stink for me. I'm going to be honest. It's hard enough that my oldest child tomorrow moves into Miami University. He's 17 and he starts college tomorrow. And as a mother, I'm trying to keep it together. But Miami University is a very unique place, and the graduate school is here to support you in 3 ways. Specifically, we want to support you in your disciplines, so don't hesitate to reach out. If you have questions about how things work, different policies, can you do this early? Can you do that? Can you substitute this for that? Don't hesitate to reach out. We are here to support you in your program. And hopefully my sound is good. I'm assuming they're not responding right now. We're also here to help you build community. And I'm going to tell you a number of different ways that we build community for you, for our online learners, our quick master's degree learners, our doctoral students. We're trying to help you build community and to find other people that are like you. Because like I said before, embrace that inner nerd. And you've probably never been around this many nerds before in your life. Well, maybe, I don't know where you come from, maybe. We also really support this idea of communicating with non-specialists. In the United States right now, it is a time when science is being questioned and research is being questioned. When people say they research things, they mean they Googled it. What you are learning here is a transferable skill set,
And we want you to be able to communicate that to people who are not necessarily in your field. So it's really important to reach out to us and to see some of the professional development that we have, because the skill set we want to build with you is that communication to non-specialists. How can you do that? So we have a series that you've heard all throughout the presentations today. It's called Graduate Student Development. It's Fridays, it's 1 to 2. So that tends to be when you guys don't have classes. So we pick that time in particular. It's going to be in a room in King Library. So if you haven't been to King Library, remember the library orientation after that is in King Library. So King Library is also near Campus Avenue. Some other buildings around it are Harrison Hall, some other buildings around that. If you're heading towards alumni, if you're in architecture, just head a little bit further and you'll hit King Library. Pretty much you ask anybody, unless it's somebody else that's new, they'll know how to get to King Library. So come meet other students. We're going to have an online option, but we're also going to, like, I encourage you, if it is safe for you, to go ahead and come meet us face to face. Within that graduate student development series, you're going to have opportunities to learn learning strategies. This is when we partner with the Rinelling Learner Center that I've mentioned before. We also have to strategies to negotiate dialogue, difficult dialogues. Think about what we've learned from this social justice movement right now. You need to be able to talk about race. You need to be able to talk about differences. And we're going to give you that opportunity to connect with people on campus, whether you're a remote learner or a face-to-face learner, to be able to connect, to learn those skills, to develop that kind of anti-racism spectrum. You also, like you heard Aja talk about, we also teach you how to do lit reviews. So we partner with the Howell Writing Center, how to do this. So all of these are opportunities to not only connect with graduate students, but to connect with people on campus who can continue to support you outside the professional development series. So please block that off on your calendar. Please check in with us and don't ignore our emails. You get a lot of them from me. I'm so sorry. Another opportunity, like I said before, I was going to come back to this. Here's your opportunity to make money. Are you guys ready? Are you listening to me? $1,000 for first place. It says 3MT. That is a 3-minute thesis. So starting in November, you'll start seeing some advertisements for this. This is your opportunity to take one slide, nothing moving on the slide, come up with a 3-minute talk about your research. First place is $1,000. Did I say that enough? But second place, you get $750. Third place is $500. And if you have a lot of friends that like you, you can get the People's Choice Award, which is $1,000. Seriously, all you have to do is have friends that are willing to vote for you. I don't know, my mom votes for me sometimes. All right. We also have this opportunity again to connect in a very informal way. So coming soon, we're waiting on some of the COVID restrictions with regards to food on campus. We have donuts with the dean. This is an opportunity to meet the dean's staff, hang out with us, talk to the dean about anything. You want to come and complain about something? Fine, go ahead, come get a donut. Like, we want to make sure that you have that opportunity in that forum. We have them roughly every month for you to get, again, to connect with other students, but no agenda, come reach out with us. The next thing we have is the Graduate Research Forum. So if you've done an undergraduate presentation before, here's your opportunity to push yourself just a little bit further. If you're doing research with a faculty member on any topic, you have the opportunity to present that. A short abstract, not stressful whatsoever, is due September 22nd. You'll submit that via Qualtrics form, and then the presentations are November 5th. You can do a poster, you can do an art presentation, you can give an oral presentation, and did I say this before? You can win money. Our top 3 oral presentations and our top 3 poster presentations all get money from participating. I'm going to tell you an added benefit. Not only are you communicating with non-specialists, I feel like I'm in sales, I went in the wrong. Didn't I tell you statistics, public health, and psychology? What am I doing here? Sales, that's what I'm doing here. Graduate Research Forum is your opportunity to connect with recent graduates from our program. You'll see recent graduates that, again, you get to talk with and network with, but you'll also see some of our older graduates as well. So you get to meet our alumni, our graduate alumni, and connect with them. Also, you get to potentially earn money and have a great cake at halftime, as if it's a sporting event. There are also other ways to connect with awards. So keep this on your mind. If you're looking for some kind of achievement or recognition for something you've done in graduate school, check out our website. There are small monetary awards that you can get from $100 to $300. They're made in November and April. So if you publish an article, If you do something significant for your field, say you have an art exposition that is a big deal for you, or you do a vocal performance, or you work with a certain company, submit that to be considered to be honored with this award. In addition to that, if you have a need base, you need a merit scholarship. In April, we consider you for the $1,000 merit scholarship as well. Again, check out the funding opportunities. They're on your graduate student resource Canvas site, and they're on our website. That Canvas site is chock full of information to connect you with things. In addition to that, we have money. You can get about between $300 and $600 to support your research on campus. So if you're in a thesis or dissertation-based program, you can request funds. They're reviewed by me, and you give me a budget. You give me a little bit about your study, and we give you money to do your research. We're looking right now with a Move in Miami campaign, because that's really depending on our undergrads, to raise money for you guys to have more money to do your research. But here again, if you need a little bit of seed money to do your study, don't hesitate to apply for that funding. The next thing we have is graduate student travel. So we had Carrie Ann, who was our president of the Graduate Student Association here, that was on this end of the table. You can request funding if you are going to attend an online conference or a face-to-face conference, or you're going to do something for professional development, fill out their form. But I'm going to give you a hint. You're going to want to make sure whoever your GSA rep is, your Graduate Student Association rep, is going to the stinking meetings. Because if your people aren't going to the stinking meetings, you can't apply for funds. So either you become the rep and make sure you're there at the meetings, or you make sure the person who is your rep is going. So you guys all come from very big departments. There's more than one of you in your departments. So make sure somebody is going. That keeps you eligible to request funds from GSA. We also have opportunities for interdisciplinary projects. So if you want funding for a research project like that, you can nominate your graduate faculty for the Mentor Award and their granted aid scholarships. So some of you have gotten our international grant and aid or our domestic grant and aid to pay for your tuition. I'm going to give you, I don't think this is on my next slide. No, it's not. There's also something if you're in a doctoral program. You guys asked earlier about mentoring undergraduate students. If you want to do a research project with you and an undergraduate student, there's also an opportunity for funding. It's called DUOs, which is the Doctoral Undergraduate Opportunity in Scholarship. So it gives you an opportunity to do research or do some mentoring with undergrads. All right. See, in contrast to every other speaker, I'm under time. Just saying. Any quick questions before we transition to our next group? Yes. Sure, that's an excellent question. So the question for those of you online was, are there any online summer or winter term study abroad opportunities for graduate students? The short answer is yes. The more extended answer is our international student services has a whole list. Practically any trip that the undergrads go on, you can go on as well. There are a number of trips that are also targeted specifically for graduate students. So check out their list or connect with that office. There are a number of people there. If you can't find the person to connect with, again, don't hesitate to reach out and we can tell you who to connect with in that office. All right, the question from online is, how do they find out who their GSA rep is? You can either reach out to Carrie Ann, who maintains a list. So again, Carrie Ann Sherritt. If you're on the GSA Canvas site, you can see her name and everybody else that's on that leadership committee to tell you who you can reach out to find out your rep for your department. What was the second question? What we can tell everybody too. So how do you find out about opportunities for research? There's two ways. Number one, the research office, the Research and Innovation Office, maintains a list of opportunities for grants and scholarships and everything through their site. In addition to that, you'll see in the professional development series, you're going to see an opportunity about how to apply for grants as well. So there are a number of ways. I'm going to encourage you to keep connected with our Canvas site, the Graduate Student Resource site, but also check out our websites. They have it there. And again, if you need something in particular, don't hesitate to reach out. We can refer you to the right person. I got 2 minutes if there's one more question. All right, then we'll use this time to transition. I will be here if you have questions. I have your intersection. And then we'll have I can advance the slides. I have it also loaded on that computer so they can see it. Right, so you advance for people online, and you talk in here so they can hear you. Good evening, everyone. You're gonna have to be back here so people online can see. There are people online. Hello, people online. Okay, wonderful. So I have to stay in one place. This is gonna be my challenge for the day. Okay, thank you all for having us here with you all today. Today, we're going to talk about sexual misconduct, interpersonal violence, harassment, and discrimination, specifically as it relates to your role as graduate assistants, graduate students. So my name is Jamie Lewis Flana, and I'm Assistant Dean of Students and Deputy Title IX Coordinator.
Time out just for a second. You are a graduate assistant, you can't peace out right now. I'm just gonna tell you, this is required for your assistantship. So as those of you who are like, I thought, oh, they hear you. All right,
That pertains to those virtually too. You got to stay with us. Awesome.
We're
Thank
not
you.
offering money or donuts. Sorry.
So again, my name is Jamie Lewis Flana, and I am the Assistant Dean of Students and Deputy Title IX Coordinator and former graduate student of Miami. So that's exciting.
And my name is Colin Bear. I'm the Associate Director for the Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity. I'm the investigator in our office. And so we'll just start off with some quick introductions about ourselves, and then we'll get into the good stuff from there.
So again, this is a little bit about me. My family is from Belize, and I love talking about the country. Here are some of my degrees. And as I mentioned, I'm a former graduate student at Miami University, so proud alum. I love watching reality competition shows. I have a background in residence life, if anyone is familiar with student affairs and higher education. And I have 2 boys, a lovely dog, and I'm from Chicago. Anyone from Chicago here? No, it's always almost, oh, shout out. So yay, 1 person. And I think saw another person too.
All right, my background is marching band, undercover investigations, ultimate frisbee. My wife works in the art department here in Miami, and we are a Harry Potter family. I'm going to start off real quick with the reason why this is required training, your duty to report. And we'll get back to this and talk about it in more detail later, but in case we run out of time, I'll move it right to the front. You all have a duty to report. You become aware of allegations of sexual misconduct, harassment, or discrimination. You have an obligation to report that to the appropriate office. So we're going to tell you what some of those definitions mean, how to report it, and what happens next. Every single employee at Miami has that duty to report. So all faculty, all staff. So you may run into people who will become aware of information and don't know what to do. Sometimes they need a reminder, hey, you need to report this. Graduate students, graduate assistants, resident assistants in the residence halls, orientation leaders, student managers also have a duty to report. Other undergrads, the general student body, do not have that obligation. But just to be clear, you do. That's why we're here. So we'll start off with some fun little quizzes, just to see if you're aware.
Okay, oh, sorry. So number one, if I can, and these terms and such may be a bit unfamiliar to some people in this room, that is okay. We're gonna go with best guess. Feel free to shout it out. Women Helping Women is one of only 3 confidential resources on campus. For example, they don't report or share what survivors say to them. True or false? True. Wonderful. Thank you. A report submitted to Miami University automatically initiates a university investigation. True or false? False. So that's going to be a big part. We put the quiz at the beginning for a reason. Thank you all for indulging. So a report does not initiate a Miami investigation. Every complainant or person who is making the complaint has the ability to choose what they would like to happen next. A report only initiates supportive measures and resources at the beginning. Which of the following are protected classes according to the policy prohibiting harassment and discrimination? You can indicate all or one at a time. Not everything, but thank you for answering. You said all of it? No, not all of it. What about, besides height, so no height. What about socioeconomic class? No. What about gender identity? Yes. What about height? Just checking. Military status. We got some pros. Political affiliation. Political affiliation. Okay, that was the most uncertainty. Pregnancy. Awesome. And sexual orientation. Wonderful. Cool. And then the second part of this, which is not a Title IX supportive measure for a student complainant. Referral to counseling services, academic accommodation with faculty, automatic room move of the respondent, or mutual no contact directive. Which is not a Title IX supportive measure. B, no, but thank you. I think someone said the answer, I just wasn't sure. C is the correct answer. We do not automatically remove or move a respondent. The respondent is the person who is responding to the allegation of an alleged violation of a policy. So they are receiving it, some other language is also suspect, but yes. Second one is which students have a duty to report alleged violations of the Title IX protocol or the harassment and discrimination policy? All undergraduates, graduate assistants, resident assistants, student managers, alumni. I think you got it right, B, C, D. Awesome. And then the last one, MUPD will always contact any named suspects. MUPD is the Miami University Police Department. That is false, correct. People have say. Okay, so we're going to go a little bit over some staff definitions really quickly. Here are some faces that we just want you to become familiar with as if you're ever involved in the process. Again, the focus is on ensuring that as you all may have oversight over others or have different kinds of responsibilities than undergraduate students, you have a duty to report incidents. So becoming familiar with not only myself and Colin, but also Kenya Ash and Wesley Hiley, who are part of the Title IX team. And then also, as students from the MUPD side, wanted you to become familiar with Detective LaTawna Howard, who she works from the MUPD, the Miami University Police Department perspective, in order to provide resources and support. And if students would like to pursue an investigation from that perspective, absolutely. Women Helping Women, we talked about them at the beginning. They're an advocacy service, and we have an advocate on campus. Her name is Morgan Moore, and there is advocacy support, whether it's in the hospitals, it's in the court systems, it's in schools. Here's some information. If you ever want to just take down that number, you can call or text anytime. They respond between the business hours, but there's always someone able and willing to help. So here's the scope of what we'll be talking about today. Sexual discrimination and harassment, stalking, sexual assault, gender-based discrimination, retaliation, dating, and domestic violence. So I'll go over the definitions. Actually, would you like to go over definitions?
I would love to. All right, we're going to go over some of the definitions rather quickly because it's important to know them. You need to know them, become familiar with them. We don't want you to necessarily dwell upon specific elements of the definitions. Sometimes we look at that as part of an investigation, but we want you to understand what the policies cover. So first and foremost, Title IX is a federal regulation. It says no person in the U.S. shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any educational program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. So that's us. We are an educational institution that receives federal funds through various grants and other monies that come in here. So Title IX applies to us in everything that we do. Under our Title IX and sexual misconduct policies, these are things that are prohibited. You're going to see multiple definitions if you read the policy for some of the same types of behavior because there are Title IX definitions at the federal level that actually last year were narrowed a little bit. And we didn't really want to stick to those narrow definitions because we used to have a broader protection listed in policy. When the Department of Education narrowed the Title IX definitions, we said we want to keep the policies broad so we can offer more protections. So that's why you're going to see sections in the policy that refer to conduct prohibited by Miami University that goes a little bit beyond the Title IX definitions in some cases. But we're going to be talking about sexual harassment, sexual assault, dating violence, domestic violence, stalking, sexual exploitation, and indecent exposure. Most of us probably have a good operational definition of what these things mean. Sexual assault is unconsensual sexual touching. And it can include penetrative sex. It doesn't have to mean that. Sexual exploitation is taking advantage of someone else unknowingly using their information or watching their sexual activity. Indecent exposure is exposure of private or intimate parts. Dating violence and domestic violence refers to acts of violence committed by people that are in a romantic relationship, a committed social relationship, and that is intimate or romantic. Domestic violence refers to people who are living together, cohabitating, or someone who shares a child. These incidents are all going to fall under the sexual misconduct protocol and need to be reported. Stalking falls in that as well, engaging in a course of conduct that would cause a reasonable person to fear for their safety or cause emotional distress. It's usually some form of repeated behavior, but it can be physical, it can be electronic, telephonic. There's a lot of ways to introduce stalking. So we're going to look at a lot of different elements that fit that. If something that you think fits this flavor might fall under these categories, don't worry about how many times this has happened. If it's happened once or twice, you should understand that this needs to be reported. Sexual harassment is going to have multiple definitions. This is where things get tricky from an investigative standpoint. In the federal definition, like I said, it's been narrowed a little bit, and it kind of limits the sort of protections that are available at under the federal definitions. So with the Miami definition, it's a little bit more broad. Sexual harassment in general talks about unwelcome conduct on the basis of sex, that if it's severe enough, if it's pervasive enough, if it's offensive enough, can interfere with your educational and employment opportunities. If it creates a hostile environment, it rises to that level, we're going to call that harassment. There's some differences in the language that I worry about as an investigator. You might see the word "or" there that is underlined, severe or pervasive. In the Title IX definitions, if we go back a slide, you're going to see severe and pervasive and objectively offensive. Legally, that is a much higher threshold to reach. Harassment cases are difficult because they do require a lot of evidence. We need to figure out how much of this conduct reaches that threshold. So the severe or pervasive standard is easier to reach. That's why we included that in that policy, which goes beyond what the federal definitions tell us. And the policy prohibiting harassment and discrimination is a separate policy, and it covers several different protected class status designations. So a group of people who share common characteristics: age, color, disability, gender identity, gender expression, genetic information, military status, national origin and ancestry, pregnancy, race, religion, sex or gender, status as a parent or foster parent, sexual orientation, and protected veteran status. I should note sex and gender are in the same line there. We understand those are two different things, right? If you're subjected to harassment or discrimination based on any of these classes, that is a violation of the harassment or discrimination policy. Or if you become aware of harassment or discrimination based on one of these classes, you must report it. Any questions on any of that so far? I want to make a quick distinction between bias and discrimination. Every one of us has biases. We cannot outlaw bias. It's within all of us, it's hardwired in us. Most of the time, we're not even aware of what our biases are. So we can't necessarily prevent that. What launches, or the threshold in which it becomes a policy violation is if we draw a line between that yellow section and that green section. If it crosses that threshold, it goes up, that's where bias turns into discrimination. So when we talk about acts of bias, stereotyping, insensitive remarks, insensitive jokes, microaggressions, even bullying and name calling if it's based on protected class, those might be some of those incidents that don't quite cross that threshold into harassment if it's a one-time thing. But if it continues, when we're talking about severe or pervasive, like I talked about before, that's when it can become harassment. Or if someone uses your protected class to make some sort of decision to put forth some sort of adverse action that impacts your education or your employment opportunity, that's when it becomes discrimination. So discrimination is what is prohibited. That's what I investigate. Acts of bias are not ignored. We still want to keep track of those things. We have a bias reporting system. We'll show you the link to that in a moment. But that information is collected by the Dean of Students and the Vice President of Diversity and Inclusion. We still want to be aware of bias incidents that happen on our campus. Sometimes they can result in some sort of action. If we see patterns developing, it can result in some sort of resources and support, some form of outreach, educational conversations. We still want to address those things as appropriate. Does that make sense to everyone? So just going through these slides real quick, I already described what discrimination is, basically an adverse action taken against you, some sort of decision that has been made based on your protected class. And harassment is more of conduct that you are subjected to that will interfere with your ability to achieve your educational and employment opportunities. Harassment can also refer to what we call quid pro quo. Basically, something in exchange for something else is what we call quid pro quo. For example, you're going to get the assignment that you want, and you're going to get a better grade in exchange for sexual favors. That's a classic example of quid pro quo. That qualifies under harassment as well. And then retaliation is written into all of these policies. One of the reasons why people don't report these things is because they fear retaliation. I make this report. What is this person going to do to me? Is this going to make my life worse? Is someone else going to take some sort of retaliatory action against me for making this report? That prevents a lot of people from wanting to engage in this process. So retaliation is prohibited. It is a separate and distinct policy violation. We don't have to necessarily have a finding in the original complaints or even complete the investigation in order to have a claim of retaliation. We're going to look at that separately. Any sort of action taken against you that might deter you from wanting to engage in this process if you have made a complaint or participated in an investigation or basically opposed an act of harassment or discrimination, that might be construed as retaliatory. Those are protected activities. I have this conversation with every single person I sit down with, whether they're a complainant, an accused party, or a witness. I want to make sure that is very, very clear. Retaliation is prohibited. We need people to be able to report things to us and to be comfortable in doing so, knowing that they are protected. That's the only way that we are able to respond to these sorts of issues on our campus. I'll hand this back to you.
Okay, so we talked about your duty to report. We talked a little bit about the why. Let's talk about where. So we are covering a couple different areas. And so hopefully this handy dandy chart, which I don't know if you all receive at a later point in time, maybe. You will receive this, and I'm going to get back in the camera at another point in time. And hopefully it's a resource to you if you ever do need it during a difficult situation. But when it comes to discrimination, y'all, it's been a long day. Discrimination, harassment, or retaliation based on protected class. If you remember the visual chart from the beginning, that goes to Kenya or Colin. This is Colin. Sexual misconduct and interpersonal violence as it relates to employees, that would go to Kenya. Sexual misconduct and interpersonal violence as it relates to students would go to me on the Oxford and Luxembourg campuses. And sexual misconduct and interpersonal violence involving students on the regional campuses. Right now, we are hiring for that position. So in the interim, that will go to Kenya. But what we always want to emphasize is that no matter what, if you get it to one of us, we will get it somewhere. We just want to make sure that folks are ensuring that they are reporting. And this really empowers the student or anybody to be able to know what options are available for them. So again, here's your duty to report, and we can advance. Okay, so a couple of things to remember: that a report does not automatically result in an investigation. Now, we talked about that, but we want to make sure we drive it home. And then if someone is about to disclose something, it probably is a little helpful that you let them know that you do have a duty to report. So it may feel awkward and interesting to be able to interject when someone is about to share something with you, but really it's about allowing them the power to make a decision that's best for them. So if you do interject and you let them know that they are about to disclose something that you think may be aligned with insert area, and that you really want to let them know that you have a duty to report, which means that a limited number of people will know, but you'll be able to be reached out to with resources and support. And that's for them to be able to make the decision for them as it relates to next steps, but also in that moment if they choose to disclose. So you absolutely want to let them know. And then your duty to report is triggered as soon as you become aware. So absolutely finish the conversation you're having with someone, lead with care and compassion, but then you do need to report that. If you ever want to give us a call and kind of talk through a situation right before, that's perfectly fine as well. And you do want to report all information that you have. And don't assume that somebody else has already reported it, because sometimes someone will say, I'm going to report it, and they don't, and they forget. And we just want to make sure that, again, we're providing that support for all students and folks. So here's some language. If folks can take a moment and read what's on the screen, it's really helpful to be able to have some language if someone is going to disclose, because it's not something that we naturally would practice in our regular lives. Feel free to use your own language, how you communicate best. And this says, I just want you to know that as a university employee or graduate assistant, that I am responsible for helping maintain student safety. This means if you share that an assault or insert other topic has happened, I need to take steps to inform trusted people who can help. Only the people who need to know will know. Okay, let's take a moment to read this really quickly and let's see if we report or not. Greg comes to you and discusses his amazing night at Newbar. You probably don't know about, some people probably know about Newbar. As he shares photos with you, he nonchalantly expressed that he needs to get out because he had an ex that wouldn't stop reaching out to get in contact with him at all hours of the day and night for the past 3 weeks. He blocked her on social media and her number, but she keeps threatening to hurt herself if he does not get back with her. Greg says he isn't too bothered by it, but wants it to stop because he feels unable to focus on his big OChem exam coming up. Do we report it or not? Why do we report it? We report it for it's pervasive. It's stalking. Any other reason why we report it? She's trying to coerce him. It's affecting his schoolwork. All of the above. Absolutely. So absolutely take the opportunity to report.
When you do that, here's a recap of what you can do in the moment is offer a listening ear. Being able to just actively listen is important. Support the student in the way that you know how. Don't blame the student. Let the student control the situation. And so again, a part of that is the disclosure and being able to interject as appropriate. Ask if they need medical attention. That's on a case-by-case basis. But medical attention doesn't also always need to be physical. It can be psychological as well. And then remember your duty to report. And then we talked about 3 confidential resources at the top of our session. That was Women Helping Women, Students Counseling Services, and Student Health Services. But there are other confidential resources that are outside of Miami University as well that we encourage folks to know about and kind of commit to memory if possible, because we want, again, a part of that empowerment piece is to ensure that folks have spaces where they can speak confidentially to someone before they choose to report. Okay, so reporting, there are various reports. Here we are talking about, we can skip this one. So here is what the reports will look like from the website. So if you do a search on miamioh.edu and you search these blue bold words, it'll get you here in some way, shape, or form, but you'll also have access to this, and it'll include the reporting forms in another slide. But know that there are various reports, and to what Colin said at that top right, I think it's top right, top left, bias incidents do have a place to be reported as well. So reporting to Title IX, you'll submit the incident report, and you'll give me as much information as you have, including all of these places. Think who, what, when, where, why, whatever information that you do have. Sometimes you won't have a ton of information and you'll just have a name, and that's okay too. Sometimes it would have happened 10 years ago and you'll say, well, it's not relevant. You'll be surprised how often things come back and really trigger students as it relates to their ability to progress through their semester or their year. So absolutely report. And you can indicate that too. It happened 10 years ago or whatever information was shared with you. From an investigation standpoint, if a student does decide to pursue an investigation, then they'll meet with me and I'll gather their formal complaint in writing and move it forward for investigation, which Colin or Wesley, depending on the situation, will then do their job to get as much information as they can and determine if more than likely a policy violation may have occurred and move it to a hearing or whatever the process looks like. If there's a determination that a student violated something along the Code of Student Conduct or the Title IX policy or prohibiting harassment and discrimination policy, all the words, then there would be appropriate sanctions. And of course, there's always an appeals process. And here's a little bit about my role and what I do, again, just to let folks know that once a report comes in, what's initiated is our resources and supportive measures, not an investigation. So as reports come in, I reach out, I invite folks to meet with me. I say, let's meet, let's talk. A person can share as much or as little as they want about the actual incident. Sometimes we do not talk about the incident at all. We just talk about how they're doing and what they need. So we talked about a little bit about accommodations. I brought those up. And one of the questions asked about faculty, academic accommodations. I consult with faculty a lot to be able to determine what's a reasonable accommodation for their classroom environment. And this can involve exams, assignments, attendance. It really depends on the situation and everything is on a case-by-case basis. But that is a part of my role to be able to have those conversations, again, to ensure that a student is able to successfully complete the course. Other accommodations, working with counseling services, working with Ranella, working with everybody across campus. Next slide. So again, overview of the process. It initiates resources and supportive measures, and then we move on. If a student decides or a person decides to pursue any adaptable resolution process, formal complaint, or they would like to close the case, at any point in time, if they decide that they do not want to move forward with any form of investigation or next step or formal complaint, they still have access to resources and supportive measures.
So when OEO receives a report, the process is going to be fairly similar. Sometimes the biggest difference will be where the outreach is coming from. So if we get reports of harassment or discrimination based on protected class, and it's not necessarily a sexual misconduct issue involving students, then that outreach might come from me. Again, the complainant is not required to meet with us. The complainant can choose if they want to pursue an investigation, but we're going to offer some options. Investigation is a possible outcome. Maybe they just want an informal resolution. Maybe the complainant just wants us to know about it, document it for later if need be, and request no action at the time. And that's perfectly okay. Sometimes the complainant will want to do that. Sometimes we need to refer it to another office if we have an employment issue, but it's not something that OEO needs to investigate. Maybe it gets passed along to academic personnel or human resources. If it's turns out to be a student issue altogether, maybe we'll send it back to Jamie or to the Office of Community Standards. Our investigative process is going to be fairly similar to the student conduct process as well. We're going to collect documentation. We're going to talk to witnesses. When the investigation begins, we serve notice to the accused party so they know what it is they're being accused of, so they have an opportunity to respond. And then we go from there. An investigation ends with a letter of finding where we analyze the evidence, summarize what we found, determine whether or not it needs to move forward to the disciplinary hearing process. OEO does not make the decisions ourselves in terms of what happens next. If we find that someone has violated the harassment or discrimination policy or the sexual misconduct protocol, then we'll refer them for the next step of the action, but that corrective action is determined at the employment level by human resources or at the student level by the Office of Community Standards. And so just to sum up the policies that we're talking about, there are 2 sexual misconduct protocols, one for students and then another one for employees and non-students. You all are sort of in both camps here because you serve both roles. So if you find yourself involved in some sort of formal process that is part of the sexual misconduct protocol, it might depend on what your role is in the investigation. If you are a witness or a complainant or a respondent, it might change, and it depends who the accused party is. That might change the process as well. So you're going to see some differences in those protocols in terms of the services and resources that are available and what the hearing process looks like.
Does anyone here have primary designation as a staff or faculty member first? Staff? Okay. Wonderful. So for you all, that will look a little bit different. You are not referred to as a student for our policy. The designation more than likely will be as staff.
Thank you for clarifying that. We'll often look at, well, why are you here? What brought you to Miami? So what is your primary role? That's one of the things we're going to look at. So we also have the policy prohibiting harassment and discrimination. That's what covers that long list of protected classes that we showed earlier that applies to employees and students. Similar process for each until we get to the hearing process. And then duty to report is a standalone policy, but it's also written into these other policies. We just want to make it very, very clear that you all have a duty to report. We need to have this information recorded. These next couple slides, you can probably read through later. It just shows how our policies are designed to be in compliance with state law, federal law, various executive orders, things that have evolved over the years in the legal sphere, and our policies and practices evolve to change with it and make sure that we're in compliance with all these things. And this goes back to Title IX in 1972, the Civil Rights Acts from the 60s. And every time something changes, there's a new protected class, there's a new guideline in terms of how educational institutions respond to these things. We'll review that and edit our policies appropriately. And a big example of that was when the Title IX regulations changed last year. We rewrote the policies. They're more confusing than they used to be, but now we've got a very robust system to make sure that we offer broader protections in excess of what the federal regulations require. And so that's what the slide mentions. There's a lot of changes that made it through Title IX. We don't want students or employees to really worry about what the regulations changed. It's a headache on the investigative side and on the legal side. If you actually are sitting down with us and we're explaining the process, we can get into the nuance of what the investigation looks like, what the hearing process looks like, and what sort of things change. Sometimes people make a decision as to whether or not they want to pursue a formal investigation based on what that process looks like. We're always happy to answer those questions. Want to make sure that is clear for any complainants that is deciding what to do. So if you have questions about it now, we can get into it. We can talk about it for hours if we really wanted to. Wasn't planning on getting into all the detail here today, but we always are happy to answer questions about process. It's also written into the protocols. Want to be as transparent as possible. We still good on time? All right, we'll go through a couple quick possible scenarios here. Maria was assaulted the weekend before midterm. She's overwhelmed, lost a day's worth of studying by being in the hospital with the SANE exam, it's sexual assault nurse examination, and then sleeping the rest of Sunday. She's tearful in class on Monday and decides to speak with her favorite professor to tell them what's going on. Maybe it's her favorite graduate assistant. Her parents are states away, and as a freshman, she doesn't have a strong network of friends yet. After she reports being assaulted, the GA lets her know that they need to report it to Title IX. Duty to report. Maria starts crying. The GA tells her that they do this to support students and to get them connected to resources because there is a cascading effect with sexual assault. Maria's GA lets Maria know that it's not her fault and they can work together on due dates for class. So this is a supportive reporter. This is what we want you to do. But in this situation, let's talk. What went well? What else might you do in this situation? Anybody? Very good. Remind the victim it's not their fault. That chart Jamie showed you earlier. Listen, be supportive, don't blame the student.
Says that he notified her that he needs to report after
Yeah, and that might be situational. Sometimes when someone comes to you and they're about to disclose something, sometimes you can see it coming, but not always. So if you know what direction the conversation is about to go, that language that Jamie showed you earlier might be, hey, as a graduate assistant, I have an obligation to report incidents of sexual misconduct, harassment, discrimination, whatever the situation ends up being. So we need to get that information in the appropriate hands. Depends how the conversation goes, right? Because you don't necessarily want to interrupt them or start peppering them with a lot of questions. Let them speak their truth, let them tell their part, and interject when you're able to, so they know what the next step is. Now, also with that, they might be telling you because they trust you and they just need to talk to someone. Maybe they don't want it to move forward. That's not your decision to make. That's going to be theirs. We still want to make sure that report comes in so we can open the door. We want to offer resources, offer options so they can decide how to move forward. When that outreach comes from Jamie, or if it comes from OEO, the complainant can decide whether or not to respond to it, but we want to make sure those options are available. But telling them, yes. Yes, yeah. Should you go ahead and report it? Absolutely. And it's up to you and what kind of relationship you have with this person to determine how deep into the conversation you're going to get. And not everyone is going to be comfortable or equipped to get into a very lengthy conversation. Go ahead and report it. And that's one of the reasons why we have this policy, is because we don't necessarily want our employees to be burdened with the notion of, what do I do next? How do I handle this? How can I best be supportive of our student? Be as supportive as possible, but if you hand it over to us, we can offer more resources and more services. Thank you. Any other thoughts on this one? Oh, good question. Do you want to handle this one?
Yes. Yeah, so the question was, what happens if during a conversation or disclosure of, was it sexual assault? Of sexual assault, that there is also conversation and context that the person was also doing things that they shouldn't have been doing, which you're probably referring to possible policy violations such as drinking, underage drinking or something? Okay, awesome. And so my primary focus, and I always share that with folks, my primary focus is not on that part. My focus, and I'll say primary focus, but my focus is not on that. Our focus is ensuring that the person has the supports in place that will allow them to just be successful human beings. So we focus on the case at hand. There's also, have you all had any conversations about like Good Samaritan policy and things like that? Wonderful. So Good Samaritan policy is also a thing in terms of being able to, from a community standard. So the Office of Community Standards is like the campus conduct office. Although great human beings, wonderful, really fun team. And so they tackle those student code of conduct violations, but the focus for the situation is really on ensuring the person is whole. And so it is on a case-by-case basis, but I'm being cautious of how I use wording, right? It is very case-by-case basis, but we are not leading with those choices. Absolutely not. So. Oh yeah, limited amnesty as well. Yes, it is still written into the policy. Thank you. And so in situations like that, there is limited amnesty. Okay, here's another one. I don't know where we are with time, but
Maybe we wrap up with this one.
sure can. We can wrap it up with this one really quickly. Okay, folks. Bethany was assaulted by an acquaintance at the beginning of the semester. She's overwhelmed and is having anxiety and flashbacks. She's been missing some assignments and getting to class late. When Bethany musters the courage to talk with her professor, they are upset and think Bethany is trying to make excuses since it's been happening all semester. Bethany then mentions she was assaulted the first week of classes. The professor is flustered now that Bethany has disclosed something they need to report. The professor doesn't let Bethany know that they have to report this to Title IX, but soon Bethany hears from the deputy Title IX coordinator. Bethany feels betrayed. She just wanted to do well in school. What could have gone better? What can you refer students? How can you refer students? Where can you refer them to? What else might you do in this situation? Does anyone have any comments to share as we wrap up our time today? Yes. Basically, I heard basically after a certain point in this paragraph, everything went downhill. Okay. Yeah, so there was a lack of support. The person was flustered, didn't let them know that they had to report, and the person hears from them, and just really not hearing Bethany and honoring that person's truth. You know, the things that you all saw as in opposition for the first one. So thank you. And then when we're talking about referring students, as in going to your question or your point earlier, making sure that as we're leading with care and compassion, we're remembering women helping women, or remembering the student health services, student counseling services. You can let them know that the deputy Title IX coordinator is awesome, and just really ensure them that there are people who are here to support them and provide resources and supportive measures. Okay, you all will have access to this at a later point in time, but thank you for spending a little bit of time with us. If you are looking to get involved, I do have I would love a graduate student on there, but a response subcommittee of the Coordinated Community Response Committee. If you want to learn more, here's my contact information. Yeah.
That is correct. If there are limited exemptions, that would be one of them if you're in a counseling or clergy role.
If you're a third person and you're witness to the conversation specifically from the scenario of unsupportive. Yeah, so we get overheard conversations all the time as well. Colin, correct me if I'm wrong, but you still have a duty to report.
Absolutely.
Yep. And so we get, I heard from this person who said that this person actually got that today. And so, multiple degrees of separation or just being a witness, a bystander, absolutely report. Because what's also helpful are the patterns that we start to see with certain things. So one report from you may be a report from someone else. Yes.
What if a family attended different departments that come to you as a family?
Sometimes we ask those questions, we'll even call the general counsel office to try to figure out where does this end. There is a little bit of a gray area with that. Now, regardless, we're always going to encourage you to go ahead and report it. And my question would be, why would we not? Why would we not? Trust it. But situations are different. So when you use your best judgment, ask questions of us and you said, you said that. Yeah, I would forward that information that you were bringing. Because I think it's the best, because it's the best possible.
All right, we're gonna have to wrap this back because you guys are very far and I can't type this fast. I'm just saying. So sorry, everyone. First of all, let's thank, you guys can reach out to Jamie and Colin at any time to thank them for coming. And again, lots of thank you. All right, just to wrap up things a little bit more really off screen. You can look at Jamie, she's better looking. She ran away.
I hope you see that the overarching thing that we have for you, whether it's duty to report, the libraries, the Center for Teaching Excellence, the graduate school, we are here to advocate for you and we're here to support you in your career. Don't hesitate to reach out. The duty to report is a crucial training. It is something that you should know about, again, because we want our undergraduates and our graduate students to succeed and feel supported even when they're having difficult experiences. And I don't, by no means am I trying to diminish that type of experience. I'm trying to say, we are here for you. They are here for you. There are a lot of resources on campus. We were also at 6 o'clock. We're past. We're at 6:04. If you would like to go to the library orientation next, we still have Abby here. She's waving her hand in the front. We hope that you'll join us for that orientation. Thank you for coming. I hope to see you at a lot of graduate school events. Good luck this year. Welcome to Miami. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.